People in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Press the button, Lindsay.
we're live streaming. Hi everyone, it's that time of month again. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're joining us on our live streaming platforms, LinkedIn and YouTube, lovely to see you. Shall we get going? Shall we let in the live studio audience? Hello, hello, hello. Hi everyone. Hopefully you're
Hey
here.
everyone, happy Friday.
We're PMO HotHouse. It is the 24th of April. We're ready to go with another. Push. So some of you will have your sandwiches at the ready. It's 12:15 p.m. BST, and we are live streaming from the UK. Whereabouts are you, everybody? We'd love to see where you are. I'm personally in north of Manchester. Beautiful day here for a change. Eileen's with us. Eileen, where are you in the world?
I'm in a what looks to be a gloriously sunny day in here in Solihull. However, it's not half as warm as it looks like.
And we've got John with us as well, to make up the final number. John, where are you today?
Me, I'm in sunny southeast London.
Lovely,
Cheap,
lovely, lovely.
cheap end of Greenwich.
Lovely. So you're right near the GMT BST line.
I am, yes, only a few about a minute off, I think, in degrees,
Very
minutes and
good.
stuff.
Very
But
good.
very close,
And
very
if you're
close.
joining us here in the live studio audience, hello everyone. Just let us know where you're from. So do a little networking thing while you're here. And if you're watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn, say hi. Lovely to have you with us as well. If you've not joined us before, it's 45 minutes. It's pretty fast and furious. If you don't like us talking about one particular thing, don't worry, because we will have moved on to something else by the time you've got even to complain on chat. So let's start off, shall we? It's
Just
I've got a
before you
lovely.
start, for those of you who haven't opened your chat up, there is always a second conversation happen as we go in chat. So it allows us to kind of give you some links as we go through, but also allows you to put some comments in and as we go through, so other people can kind of see how things are going down and provoke some other comments from other delegates who are here on the session.
Okay, so right, shall we go then? Let's kick off with some of the clever stuff from John. It is. It's the little urchin that's back. That's the little voice you could hear. I'm not calling John a little urchin, but I'm sure you any offence at that, John. Take it away, John.
Okay, right. So, what have we got? We've got a few things for you this week. Let's start with the Olympics. So, this is a piece in the Public Management Review. Some names on there might be familiar to some of you. Alexander Badizier has been a guest on our show previously. He had a book out a couple of months ago on metrics in the project management space, which is a really good read. So do look that one up in the House of PMO archives if you've not had a chance, and do have a look at his book because it is fabulous. This
Going to be
was
talking at the conference, John.
sorry.
He's keynoting at the PMO conference as well,
I
Alexander.
did not know that. Well, in which case
Yeah,
I will be I
yeah,
will see him then in person, which would be great. Where do we get tickets, Lindsay?
yeah. Well, I'll tell you all about that. You carry on.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, this is a big data analysis of the Olympics is. That's what the plural of Olympics is from 1960 to 2024. And what they're discussing in this article is whether projects learn across space and time. So they've got this lovely word, spatiotemporality, which is your word of the week. I challenge you to drop that into your Friday PMO reports out to the business, talking about the spatiotemporality of your projects, and whether or not it is blocking your higher level learning. There we go. It's an interesting piece. It is worth a read. There's a lot of good data in there. I've got to be honest, the conclusions on this don't really quite land for me, because basically what they're doing, they're concluding that we're not learning on some of these projects that are spatio-temporarily diverse, which is where they're apart in terms of distance, time. There's temporary organizations are different for each one, and all of that makes it harder to learn, which is stuff we know from project management and the work that we do in the PMO space already. The way they've done the linking is interesting. They've looked at cost overruns for the Olympics, and I've argued that if you analyze the cost overruns of the Olympics, then actually we're not learning from the past. There is a question there. The challenge on that one is actually, is that the right metric to be using to decide whether we're learning or not? And I'm not so sure about that one, because there's a lot of novelty in Olympics, in delivering the Olympics. There's a lot of other factors other than pure cost. And there's the politics that quite often happens of deliberately lowballing to get something put through, knowing that they're going to end up spending more as well. So a few questions on the way they've thought that one through in there. A few points I'd like to make that I've just picked up out of it as well, that whilst they are looking at the countries that have run the Olympics and debating whether they've learned or not, that tends to be focused on the countries and the cities that have actually won the Olympics. But it is worth calling out as well that a lot of cities, a lot of countries are making decisions either not to bid or to partner with others to bid as well. So if you look at 2032, for example, Brisbane won that one absolutely unopposed because everyone sort of stepped back and let them do it. So there's learning that we get from projects that is valuable in deciding whether to do a project or not. And we shouldn't lose sight of that when we think about the lessons out of projects. It's just as valid a lesson if someone's decided not to bid for the Olympics as it is that the person running the Olympics has actually saved money on it or not. The other one to call out, Paris is actually a great example of learning from the past. They've borrowed, they've learned, they've been cautious on everything they've done. They've built a lot of things that will be reused in the next Olympics to save time going forwards and save cost going forwards. And actually, whilst the numbers are still being crunched for Paris, they actually seem to have quite low overruns compared with some of the historical data from previous ones as well. Correlation's an issue. There's a high degree of novelty on these. Anyone trying to run the Olympics is going to want to be flash. They want to do novel things. They'll do projects that are either brand new, architecturally experimental on a global context. But even if they're not doing that, they're almost certainly things that are very novel for that city. There's not many cities that are regularly spinning up stadiums and event spaces on the scale that you do when you're running the Olympics. Now, I question whether the overrun is more correlated to the degree of novelty than it is to the fact that these projects are so spatially diverse. So I'll leave that to you to think about which one is the right one there. But the nice thing about this, when you read into it, whilst the headline is about they're not improving, they explicitly call out and acknowledge even in the abstract that actually there is a lot of lower level learning. So even though it might not be affecting the overall end-to-end cost, actually areas like accessibility, crowd management, anti-doping, the list goes on, they are seeing very, very big improvements. So lessons are clearly being learned at some of the lower levels on the Olympics, even if those don't bubble up. And a very good question. I wonder what the World Cup version of this would look like. I've no idea. I've only watched the first episode of W1A on that one, but I will once I've finished the series. Anyway, I'll share this with you. It's free to read. It's an interesting read, even if I do question some of the conclusions they've come out with on that one. Next one is not a pure PMO news, so apologies for that, but AI seems to continue to be a hot topic, and I think this one is particularly relevant to PMOs, so I just wanted to highlight this. It's a PwC report. It's a performance study across multiple organizations. They've done some analysis and research, and it's also quite a good read for those of you that are embarking on AI journeys in your organizations. And the learnings that I've pulled out of this are the ones that are PMO and portfolio centric. And some of these will probably not come as surprises to you. What they're seeing is there's a very small number of companies that are seeing returns from AI and an awful lot that aren't. Of those that aren't, they're seeing that actually there's a lot of pilots going on, throwing tools out there and seeing what sticks. There's not enough linking to revenue, cost savings, or better decisions, which is something that, as we look at projects in general, is something that we probably all recognize. And there's also a conversion rate problem, that even when something is successful at a small scale with one team or one person, then those solutions aren't necessarily scalable or reusable for the organization to get benefits of scale on those. And what they're seeing is a lot of the organizations that are not getting benefits from AI are the ones that are focusing on efficiency. Let's put AI in to try and save time and effort, rather than focus on growth. How can AI allow us to move into new markets? How can it allow us to do things we've not done in the past? How can it allow us to grow rather than save costs? So there's an interesting difference that they're seeing there with the companies that are pushing forward and growing, and those that aren't. How that translates for PMO. We spoke last time. There was a case study about a PMO that over time had actually been chosen to lead the AI implementation in their organization because of their unique position in the organization across everything. So that is one way of doing it. But from this piece, establishing a clear program, or they're calling it a portfolio, it's probably more of a program in our terminology, but with initiatives, everything that people are doing in the organization on AI, every single experiment or project, making sure it is mapped to a business objective with measurable outcomes. All of these are things that we know, but seem to have been thrown out of the window when we start chucking AI tools around like Smarties in our organizations at the moment. Active scale and stopping of a cadence of decision making. So where we're doing these experiments with AI, there needs to be the explicit decisions to stop on the ideas that are broken and scale on the ones that aren't. What we're actually seeing quite often is people trying AI and then just leaving it there festering in corners, rather than actually making a decision to stop the effort in one area and doubling down on it in areas where it's proving valuable for the organization. And there's a piece in there as well, so I'll share the link for this again, but building out those foundations to support AI, making sure there is that investment discipline, so we're investing in the right areas and we can see the return on those. Skill building in the organization, which again is something the PMO can support, and looking at safety and governance, the right governance around AI, which should be at an organizational level. Not all organizations are doing that, in which case I have seen some PMOs picking up responsible AI policies and things where the projects are the ones that are paving the way. They're kind of doing that and managing that upwards as well. So a few areas there. It's an easy read. It's all research based, and is obviously free to access as well. Next one is also with AI. So this is coming out of a couple of different areas, this one. So there's this great thought piece, institutional AI versus individual AI, which I'll share a link with you on. And what struck me about this those of you eagle-eyed might note this was a March article, not an April one. So is it technically April news? I'm going to say it is, on the basis that I only saw it this month, and therefore it counts. I'm in charge of the news. But what's coming out of that is something that was very similar to what we discussed in our PMO meetup on Monday night, which is on Monday we were asking questions about what's accelerating delivery forwards and what's holding us back in 2026. One of the things that came out of that was AI, and we were discussing about that AI is definitely making individuals faster, and maybe software delivering more releases and things like that. But what it's not doing is making our overall portfolios faster. And we explored ideas like it's good for somebody to generate documentation faster individually, but then somebody still has to read that documentation. Someone has to analyze it. The accountable people still have to actually make sure everything is right, even when our responsible people are churning out AI documentation at a rate of knots. So it can push work upwards and make it harder for people at a level above. And that is absolutely what this essay piece is concluding as well. And you can see the sort of strap lines that I've put on the slide there. AI just made every individual 10x more productive. Yet the companies aren't becoming 10x more valuable as a result. So where does that productivity go? They've got a few theories in there. The fact that the individual AIs are working in different direction, acting as an echo chamber, telling everybody confidently that they are absolutely right in the way they're going, which is great for them. But then when you try and look across the organization, if all of these people have different views, then actually it's making things harder, not easier. You end up with people more stuck in their ways and entrenched rather than moving in the same direction. So there's a proposal in there for actually looking a lot more at institutional AI and how that works. rather than focusing on individual productivity. So that's another one for you just to think about where you're using these tools. Is it making individuals more productive, or is it making your portfolio more productive? And is it slowing you down? I will share the Eileen's asking what organizational AI looks like. I will share the read for you because it's quite a long one, Eileen. On to the final one from me. This is one from the Financial Times. This is about glue work. Now, this is quite interesting. So glue work, not dissimilar. Some of you might recognize we've talked about boundary spanners on here before. So you might look at this and say, well, this feels like a boundary spanner-ish role. And it is. This is based on this is an FT piece based on a blog post from several years ago, which in turn was based on a talk somebody did at an engineering conference. And they were talking about careers for software engineers. And what they were describing as glue work was this coordination, gelling between teams, aligning people, relationship building, solving misalignment. And they were saying it's a really important skill to have as a senior engineering manager, but actually you need to be careful with it in your junior days, because what they found from their experience is actually those people that are doing all of that work as junior engineers don't tend to be the people that are promoted. What they're seeing is actually the person that gets promoted is the one who wrote the great code once this person who's doing the glue work managed to unlock everything for them. So that's where the term came from. What this article is advocating, with a number of people starting to agree with it, is that actually if AI is being used increasingly now to write the software, and you've got Claude and Claude doing its thing, you've got Codex doing its thing, and more we've got engineers who are using those kind of tools to write the software while they oversee them, then actually it's more and more important that glue work becomes the core rather than the bit that was the support work in the past, if you see what I mean. So a few quotes from there I just pulled out. What is left after AI is taking on the coding and things on our projects is the ability to manage, the ability to document, explain the wider context, coordinate, see the customer's needs, see the bigger picture, all of which sounds like it's the kind of stuff that the PMO does now. And then that quote at the end there from a staff engineer at GitHub. Those are the most important skills. Those are the most important skills. In fact, they are the skills. So this is where engineering seems to be pivoting and saying, actually, where we used to focus on doing coding right, we now recognize this is the area where we're going to be while the bots are doing the coding. And my point to all of you is actually, as PMO people, this is what we do for the organizations. And it sounds like it's going to become a lot more important as we go forwards. And that's it with the headlines from me this month, I think.
Lovely. I really like those, John. Good shout for that. Glue work. Like that very much. Thank you very much. Right. So there's some comments and things in there for you to have a look at. Some of it, yeah, there you go. Boundary spanners and glue sticks, all sorts of things. But if you can share some of your sources, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. Let's move on. And what's next? It is quick advert break, and to let you know, PMO conference is around the corner, and we always like to have some good competitions to give you a chance to win a ticket. And depending on how well this competition goes, there's probably going to be a few tickets up for grabs. But AI, again, you know, it is very much an important paying, I suppose, conversations that are going on at the moment. We thought let's have a bit of fun with it. And we're asking for your AI movie poster. So all we want you to do is you can have a look on our news page. I will put a link in after this. But why not have a go at it and have a share? I've just done mine in the House of PMO LinkedIn group. If you're not already part of the group, please do make sure you join us in there. I've just put my favourite movie poster in as well. But we're going to be pulling out some of the great posters that you can come up with. And yeah, we'll be in with a shout for a conference ticket. Adverts, there's a lot of face-to-face stuff going on at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant, but there's a lot coming your way. So top left, Swindon, bottom left, Edinburgh, bottom right, Southampton, and that one's on a boat. And then top right is also celebrating International PMO Day, and that one's in London. Please do make sure that you get out and about, and I'm going to share some news in a minute about how we had an out and about this week, but really did put in my mind that, you know, these things are really great, and yes, there can be a like, oh, do I really want to leave the house? But please, you'll not regret it. There's 4 of those to pick from. Go and have a look on the events page. And also to let you know, we are launching a new course. This one's nearly full. Again, AI dominating, but just a reminder that it's there if that's something that's really at the forefront. And a really great session that we had. Again, I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But also to let you know that by popular demand, this year's PMO conference, normally 2 days, we're adding the 3rd day, the 19th of June. Laura's going to be back in town. Any of you that are aware of Laura know what she's up to with the Impact Engine. There is a fundamentals 1-day course that we ran for the first time on our 10th anniversary last year. Really, really well received. We are going to be running it again. So why not have a look at the conference pages? We'll put some links in for those as well. Okay, that's the adverts. Let's move on, shall we?
Link is moving us on. I've posted, for those of you that are in the Zoom space, I've posted links to all of the news articles that were there. For those of you that are listening on LinkedIn and YouTube, maybe next time if you head over to House of PMO website events and sign up there, you get into this inner circle where you're in the Zoom room with us and you can see the live chat and everything that we're doing here as well.
Lovely. And so what we're up to, you will anywhere else this week? Well, we were at Project Forum. For people that were not familiar with it, it is actually something that the House of PMO had put together, echoing the days of something that used to exist called Project Challenge, which is a day for not just PMO people. It is for the whole collection of people that are working around project management. And as you can see, we had a couple of vibrant stands with all our, as I like to affectionately call it, tat, for people to pick up and take away with them, which was a very, very busy stand. But the kind of things that we were doing, it was not only seminar sessions, but also roundtable discussions. Eileen and I ran 30 minutes about the emergency services, the Blue PMO Summit report. Really nice to talk directly to people that were not only working in emergency services. Actually, there were people around that table that were interested because it's PMO, and having discussions about some of the challenges. And if you've still not been able to download that report, it doesn't matter if you're not working in emergency services, there is something for everybody in this report. And we were just touching on some of the challenges. We got into things like the capability levels of project managers, the value of PMOs, PMOs getting a rough ride. There was a little bit of an outpouring, an emotional outpouring of people's real life situations. And that just highlights for us that doing these kind of things, is just totally up our street. It's what we do all the time. We just want to be, talking to people like yourself about the challenges that you've got. and what you're up to. We also understand we always try to have something where people can add their bits as well. It actually helps us because if there's a lot of people coming to the stand, we want to talk to everybody. We can't do that, so we get them looking at something and doing something while we're still chatting. This was about what they're using, how they're using AI today in their PMOs, because obviously, you know, you see all this wonderful news about what people are doing with AI, and we just want to know what PMO people are actually doing with AI. And this is where we are today. And it'd be lovely if you did it again next year to see what the comparisons are between what people are doing. But generally, you know, by and large, it is some of those, and you can see probably a little writing there is somebody's put as my PMO sidekick, which is quite, you know, I think a lot of people are using it and dabbling in it to help on certain things. And these are some of the things that people are using it for today. I think there's you know, again, some of them being held back by their organisations that actually they're not investing heavy in it. They don't have a strategy for it. They don't actually, for some of them, don't want people to be using it. You know, it's still really tricky times. But I mean, for the people that are doing stuff with it, you know, there is obviously a lot of use cases where the PMO can be using certainly Gen AI, which is when we had another roundtable session when we did PMO AI top trumps, and what you're looking at on screen there is the top trumps that we made. But this were really good because this is linked to the course that we were putting out there, because it's important that, yeah, everybody, you know, you can play on ChatGPT and create movie posters and things like that. But we wanted to get into the nitty gritty of what the use cases are. And what you're seeing on here is some of the, you know, the leading use cases for PMOs. For example, yes, there's status reporting. Yes, there's things like lessons learned. There's portfolio alignment. There's lots of different things. And what we did on the table was to have that game of top trumps, you know, where you're, you know, trying to find the winning card. It led to discussions about, like, okay, well, it's really interesting that, you know, that it might be resource heavy on some of these PMO services, but it led to us to have a conversation about how AI could potentially do some of this smarter for us, and what do we need, and how could we make it work. So there's a lot of discussion again around the table, being able to get into some of the use cases. What I can't share is just the sheer amount of stuff that was going on across the day. I know I've noticed some people here that are on the chat and in the room right now that came along. Does any of you want to come off mute or show your face and tell them about your day and what you got out of Project Forum? Is anybody not feeling particularly shy and wants to tell us what a great day they had?
I'm happy to say, Lindsay.
Hello. How was your day? What did you get out of it? And should we do it again?
Yeah, so my day was great because we took along, I had 12 colleagues with me who we covered program, project and PMO. And we had so much stuff that we're collating it all and doing a feedback next week to our wider team. But we dabbled in imposter syndrome. We dabbled in Steve Jenner's work on portfolio. We dabbled in AI. I mean, there was just a lot of the feedback from the team was there was actually too much. We wanted to try and go and see more things. So yeah, and we're looking forward to next year already and bringing more people. So yeah, absolutely excellent day. Went in a storm with the team.
Okay, lovely. I mean, I know Eileen obviously did a session about enterprise PMO. For anybody who's a member, you can see that in the library today. I've literally just published it before we came on live and doing this. So Eileen did a great seminar about the 5 core ePMO services. So if you're interested in that, we made another couple of recordings. We couldn't record the whole event. And it's been really interesting to see, you know, the kind of the different pace of the day compared to our PMO conference. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do it was, yeah, we want to, you know, obviously get out there to more PMO people that weren't aware of us until they walked through that door. So that's the great uptick. But again, to just have a better way to actually talk and understand what's going on with people. So, and the final bit to it is that I think we always forget with these kind of things. It's about the networking. You know, there's people that I've not seen for many years that are working networking in different organisations, both not only coming through the door, but on some of the other stands and things like that. And of course, it's always good to see some of your lovely faces. And here we were after the event, and just letting his hair down. It's a big full-on day, and yeah, we had a great time, which leads us straight on now. I'm going to put some links in while
can I just say that Shane really let his hair down.
Absolutely. And I'm going to lead on nicely to Eileen's little segment coming up next. And it's PMO skills, and it's over to you, Eileen.
Thank you very much. Right then, so I thought, as we always kind of have these kind of conversations when we go to conferences, this whole kind of concept of networking, and we often kind of try to give people kind of hints and tips of, you know, what to do before a conference, and make sure you kind of go and speak to people. But I wanted to kind of take a kind of a broader picture of networking, and again, it goes back to when I did the one on monitoring. I actually kind of learned some additional stuff as well. So the networking one really is really to say, yes, great to do that at conferences, and we'll touch on that, but actually in the competence framework, it's actually a skill. So something that we don't just do, but something that we will need to kind of think about what our networking skills are, how are we going to develop those skills. So I wanted to make this an interactive session, and I wanted to get kind of people involved. Now, try to kind of put the polls up is always kind of good fun and games. So what I'm going to do is just kind of get you to put the answers in the chat. Okay, so there's four, and it's not a quiz. There is not a right answer, okay? Because I think of all of the questions, just to tell you, all of the questions, kind of all of the answers are right, because the answer is always depends. So I'm just curious in terms of kind of, what does it mean for you in your role? So you could put A and B, or B and D, or C and D. Just curious in terms of kind of where people view. And already we've got A, B and D there in the answer. So very much kind of means quite a few different things to lots of different people. And I think one of the important things that we have to recognise when it comes to networking, it's a two-way process. Yes, networking is defined as building personal and professional relationships for mutual benefit. So we often think about the network as who can we call on when we want some work done? Who do we call on when we've got a problem? And actually, when we're kind of starting to build up a network, we need to think about, well, what are other people getting out of talking to us about? Why on earth would they want to ask us? Why would they want to add us to their particular network as well? So I think once you start thinking of networking as a two-way process and kind of building those relationships as a two-way process, you actually start to think differently about perhaps how you build that network, who's in that network, but also start thinking about whose network that you're in, because actually building up a network is not kind of a one-off activity. Yes, it's not built on a kind of one transaction, and the classic transaction, yes, is, oh, well, I'll link in with you. Yes, and you know, we all did a bit of that yesterday, and we'll continue to do that. But it's always interesting in terms of, well, that's just a connection on LinkedIn. How do you actually kind of go from that to kind of really making that person part of your network, and having being a useful part of this? So that's the first one, just kind of one little thing to think about. The second one, and we're talking kind of about kind of who do you want in your network and where would you focus your networking. So again, we've got another kind of four answers. Do you focus very much on kind of the senior stakeholders? Do you do delivery teams, project managers? Do you go out to other PMO professionals? Or do you kind of go across the organisation, which includes all of the business as usual? So I'm just curious. I think Victoria's gone for all of them. Absolutely. Anybody kind of anybody got a particular focus? Anybody kind of developing them at the moment where they're saying, do you know, I've got some gaps in my network and I'm going to really kind of focus on getting those? Because I think, again, going back to this kind of two-way process, thinking about what we get from the various kind of people who we can have in our network. So kind of some of the senior stakeholders, just it's really interesting in terms of, you don't need to have a hugely heavy relationship with a senior person, if you talk to them on a regular basis about how much kind of influence you get, but how much just background information you get around context and direction in the organization. And also when you're building up a relationship and building up your network with senior stakeholders, they're actually getting somebody, you know, they say people kind of ship up to gate reviews and other kind of board meetings, but actually, you know, they're now having somebody who they can kind of actually talk to, somebody who can actually kind of translate some of the things into kind of language they might understand. The delivery teams are always great to kind of have in your network, because somebody in your delivery in your network from the delivery team is really going to be talking to you about understanding what's really happening. And again, they will ask you for things informally that allows you to share some structure and support around the projects. We always talk about this kind of, we're going to do a little bit more detail about kind of speaking to other PMO professionals, just getting some support from somebody who does a job like you. I was talking to somebody at the forum yesterday, and he's a senior PMO manager, but he is the only PMO manager in the organization. So trying to get any kind of peer-to-peer relationship is really quite difficult. But the last one that we talked about there is the kind of the wider organization. And this is somewhere where we talk about the business as usual individuals, often resource managers of our subject matter experts, and really kind of getting to know people across the business gets a really kind of at the working edge and working floor about what's actually happening in the business, about what the business feels like, where they're struggling, what's happening with the projects, not just as they've been delivered, but when they've been delivered. And actually, they've got somebody, if you're part of their network, you're likely to be that boundary spanner. They're the person who can have and see and join up some of the dots for them in terms of some of the projects that are kind of coming through, some of the things that are going to be delivered. So I'm not suggesting that anybody break any confidentiality. Anybody who wants to kind of share secrets that they shouldn't, that's what the old smoking shed used to be like at work. But actually, kind of building up a network is seen as to be a professional skill and has some professional benefits. But not all of us do that. So the next slide is going to ask us about, it's not the next slide. I've jumped too many slides on my notes. Yes. So is that going forward?
That's my fault. It's my fault.
Yes, no, that's fine. I thought I was in the right direction and got all confused for a minute. So why don't we network? What gets in the way of networking? Is it because we're short of time? Sometimes is it because we lack in confidence or we feel a bit awkward? Do we really ask the question, do you want to be part of my network? I think from a LinkedIn, that kind of works really well. But actually how do you broach that conversation? What's the kind of opening line that you use? It's almost kind of on your first kind of blind date, isn't it? When you kind of go and kind of trying to proposition somebody, or we just actually don't kind of prioritize it. We don't necessarily kind of see it's a skill. And I think one of, to me, the really interesting pieces is that actually a lot of people don't think intentionally about why we're doing it, and what not only, I think we often think about, well, what are we going to get out of this networking group, but actually to start thinking about what they're going to get out of the network will help us build that network. So one of the things that we can do is, if we naturally in a kind of conversation with somebody, you don't need to say, can I add you to my network? But you start building on the conversations that have already taken place. So you don't necessarily kind of go and hunt them out, but actually what you're doing is starting to build up that relationship. It's not actually it's not a one-off activity. We said it's not kind of built on transactions, but kind of broadening those conversations. And then what you'll find, if we go to the next slide, Lindsay, is that actually what we need to do is start thinking about being intentional about building up the network. So if you're going to a steering group meeting, or you're going to a conference, but think about, well, who's going to be there? Where do I need to build some further relationships? So you're not saying I'm going to suddenly plug them into my network and that's going to be all the end all. How can I kind of build on what's already there to develop that individual, to develop that relationship? So actually they then become part of our network. So where does, next slide is in terms of talks about when does networking actually happen? So does it happen in formal meetings? Does it happen in informal chats, events and communities, or do you suddenly have to try and find a network when things go wrong? And I think this to me is an interesting one in terms of, you know, kind of where have you built up your network from? If you think about where your network is, how do you think you've built them up over time? Which groups, which kind of opportunities have you taken to actually kind of build that network up? So you've got a couple of B's and C's. So informal chats, events and communities. So over coffee, absolutely. Oh, so we have got some there informal meetings, which is good. Now, so interesting, nobody's volunteered to D. Yes, now Lindsay and I will kind of attest to it, and I'm sure John will as well. The number of people who decide they would like us in their network when they need a job. So although it's kind of phrased there as kind of when things go wrong, it's you could kind of read that when people need somebody. So often people want you to be part of their network when they actually kind of need something from you. And what we don't want to be in danger of is when we need things from other people. So it's back to this kind of mutually beneficial. We should be thinking about what kind of network do we need? Where are the gaps in the network? And actually looking at kind of areas of the professional and potentially personal life about over a period of time, where is the time we would actually really have benefited from having somebody to talk to, somebody to reflect on? If we go to the next slide, you know, what we say there is that the time to build your network is not when you're in a crisis. That's when you discover whether you've actually already built one. Yes, and it's I talked about this, isn't it, when I talked about escalation routes, is about the last time, the worst time to start building an escalation route and getting it established is when you actually need it. So make sure that you've actually kind of got your network in place. So my final question then is about, oh no, I've two questions. I have gone 2 times. Yes. Why does external network matter? Why is it important not just to have a network inside your organization? Why is it, you know, kind of Lindsay and I have spent the last 25 years of our life creating opportunities for people to meet with other PMO professionals, either webinars or face-to-face or the conferences. You know, kind of why is it so important that we have those kind of external people? And you know, and sometimes it's just really nice to have somebody who can empathize with you and say, you know, I know exactly what you're going through. I don't necessarily help, but I actually, because I do the same job, I'm there with it. But actually getting some ideas in terms of, do you know, we had that problem. One of the things I often talk about is when you go into lots of organizations, the first thing an organization says to me is, Eileen, we're different from everybody else you've ever been with. And I go, And inside I'm going, absolutely not, because you're going to have some very kind of typical problems. They might have some nuances that are different in other organizations, but typically we all struggle from some of those things. So actually just getting some ideas, and importantly things that actually, you know, kind of think we tried this but it didn't work, but actually we really think we did this and it moved the needle. It didn't completely solve the problem, but actually there's a kind of good basis there. And actually having somebody to talk to rather than reading an article and, you know, the good old kind of lessons learned database, actually having somebody you can actually kind of talk through and ask lots of questions helps. So as we said, you know, kind of, and this is what a lot of people say when they come to the conference particularly for the first time. It's the first time I've seen 400 people who are just like me having the same problems, and that just whole feeling of, you know, I'm not alone is worth its weight in gold. Good for your mental health. So the final one that I will talk about is this kind of our role as PMO leaders. So we've said this is a skill, yes. So what should we be doing for our team to help them build their networking skills? Yes, because again, we've already talked about, we've said, you know, kind of we're quite shy, you know, we find ourselves a bit awkward, we haven't got the time. So actually, how are we helping our teams develop their networking skills? Have we actually had a conversation around with them in terms of saying, actually, you know, kind of building up a network is really important for them because it helps them do their role better, but also in terms of, you know, kind of their future development and typically their future roles. it's important that they learn how to do that. So really, in terms of, kind of helping them develop their networking skills becomes a kind of a key part of our role. So just the final slide, as I've said, kind of all of the things that we need to do. If you go to the next slide, yeah, we train people in all of the other kind of technical skills. We also need to kind of help them and support them in building up relationships that make all of the other aspects of our work. So one final slide in the last minute is really when we kind of go to the conference. And I know we say this all the time, but I think I wanted you to think of it slightly differently now, when we've looked at it A, as a skill, and secondly as a two-way process. Go and speak to a person who you wouldn't normally speak to. Yes, just look at one of the speakers, look who's there, obviously kind of very open. Look at the people who are attending some of these webinars, and go and kind of speak to somebody. Ask an unusual question. Yes, that's a really good way to kind of be memorized. Ask a kind of a slightly different question than to, oh, what do you do? What kind of PMO do you work in? Which we know is the kind of opening up. And the really important thing to me is it has to be more than just I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you really want them to be part of your network, if you really want them to be of value to you, make sure you follow up the event. And also, hopefully they'll follow up the event too, because they'll really want you to be part of their network and not just another number on LinkedIn. Look at that, 1 o'clock on the dot, Lindsay.
Yeah, well, we're still going to get a little bit more in. But thank you very much for everybody and your enthusiasm today. Very good. Lovely to see that you're all alive and well throughout that 45 minutes of all that stuff coming at you. Just a reminder, there's the places where you can be doing some networking the next few weeks. Lovely to see you, everyone. We'll catch you again next time. It's bye from me, Lindsay, John. A wave from John.
Bye, everyone.
And from Eileen as well.
Lovely to see you all, guys. Hopefully we'll see you at one of the events, networking ferociously.
Yes. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Whoosh. And there it was, everyone. Another episode and another month over.
Flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good afternoon.
Yeah, take care.